Oui, allô, Pizza Galassia, j'ai pas le temps, faut faire sur Internet.
Hello, thank you for being here. Welcome to Neuchâtel International Fantastic Film Festival for this conference in the cycle Animation for Grown-Ups. We started 2 years ago to really think about how animation for grown-ups can be very diverse, and so far we really had really interesting guests and interesting films connected to the guests and in the overall programming of the festival. For this conference, we are very happy to welcome Ishan Schukla, who is also in our international jury, and his film is very particular because it shows a really new and personal design, I can say. It was Ishan is gonna explain way better than me, of course, but he uses, among other things, game engines to direct the film, and we already did a few conferences about this technique, and it's very interesting for us to see how the things overlap in creation. So we are very happy to have Ishan to talk about this with us. And I just wanted to say, if you haven't seen the film yet, it's going to be showed again on Friday 12th at 7:15 p.m. So if you're interested, please come to see the screening. And now I'm leaving the floor to Ishan, please. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this. We just had a lovely screening day before yesterday. I was really thrilled by the reactions of the audience. They were so diverse. There was also a lot of talk about the look of the film, about the animation. So this is what this talk is about. There are so many themes in the film which we can talk about because, as he was saying, it's also a personal statement about the world. But for the sake of these 45 minutes, let's focus on the technical and artistic workflow of this project. My highlight would be definitely Unreal Engine, in which I made the film. I'm just wondering if any of you are aware of Unreal Engine or that technology? Okay, great. And any of you do 3D animation professionally or as a hobby? Okay. So I can actually delve deeper into that. Those of you who do not know what this film is, I will quickly play the trailer about the film, and then we can continue talking about it. It premiered at Rotterdam International Film Festival this year and won the Best Asian Feature Film Award. And it was very nice to me because I always thought of this film as a feature film, not an animation feature film. So I was very happy that it was not boxed in a certain criteria. Before this film, I have done many projects, but these are one of my projects that I really like. One is definitely Schirkoa in Lives We Trust, the feature film, which is in the center. On the left, there is the episode of Star Wars Visions, which is streaming on Disney+. So it's an anthology series from Lucasfilms, which I directed and wrote, which was released last year. And the final one on the right side is the short film on which Schirkoa is based on, which I wrote and directed in 2016. Here is the trailer for the feature film we are talking about today.
I came here to find Lord, to find peace, safety, and a bit of sanity.
Schirkoa is an organism, not a concrete monolith from fiction. To be alive is the way of life. We will take all measures to ensure security and safety of the Schirkoan citizens.
紙袋のないすべての人は罰則対象となります。
You know these anomalies are all myth, right?
We declare war on the anomalies.
The forbidden refugee state? We won't have to wear these bags anymore in Kontaka. The land of the free.
Trust me, there is nothing beyond those borders.
the day we die!
It's an imaginary propaganda to keep us in check.
That's what you need to do, 197. Imagine.
Lord, bless us all.
Okay, so that's the trailer, and thank you so much. And there is a very specific reason I chose real-time rendering and performance capture for this film. And to talk about it, I have to go back a little bit. This is how I work right now at my home studio. We've created the whole film in Unreal Engine, but most of it was, if I have to choose one primary tool, it was Zoom, basically, because we were just talking to this global team all the time. I was really tired, and these are the two systems, I call them Hell and Matrix, you know, but yeah, this is what I worked on. But before this, long time back, in 2012, I looked like this. And I was just trying to create a short film based on a graphic novel I was working on. And I was just trying to see if a single man can create a short film on his own in his spare time. I also had a day job. So this is just a basic still from the graphic novel, which never got finished. But I was able to work on the short film in nights and weekends in my spare time, and I actually was able to finish it. The basic tools were the industry standard tools that we use. It was Maya, Mixamo, Redshift, and all that. There was one interesting thing which I was using, which was NVIDIA graphic cards. Basically, they were using the GPU technology to create the film. So I was not really using the traditional method of producing the final frames. I was using more and more of my graphics cards. So that was the inception in which I thought I can actually speed up the process of creating these beautiful images. This is a basic behind the scenes of that in which even if there was a very big environment, an asset, a clay render, a gray scale, the final look looked good, but if you are aware of the rendering times, they did not used to take 1 day or 24 hours to render. They were actually very, very quick. So that there was hope in the end for a single man to create a short film by himself. These are some more stills from it. But even though it was still a short film, it took a very big chunk of my life. It was 14 minutes. It took 4 years on a single PC. There were 31 sequences, 256 shots. And during the making, I changed 3 jobs, 2 countries, 5 houses, and a marriage that still is staying, you know? It's very strong. I was also very happy when the film was released. I was doing talks like these at SIGGRAPH, at different conferences all over the world. And I was very happily talking about the technology part of it because I was very confident that now I can take the next leap into the feature film. So when it won Best in Show at SIGGRAPH Asia, when it got longlisted for the Oscars, and everyone was asking, what am I doing next? I was very confidently saying, I'm working on the feature, you know, that's the next step. So I was very happy, confident. The film was really getting good audience reception everywhere. And I immediately got into working on some look tests. Now, here is a comparison. So what you will see now is the work in progress videos of the short film. And later on, around 15, 20 minutes later, you will see Unreal Engine work in progress shots. And you will be able to see the difference in the workflow and the whole creative aspect of it. So let's see the early look test for Schirkoa, the short film. even though there's so much nice things going on there, I was extremely restricted by my camera. If I try to just scroll through something, this is one camera angle. There is no way, as a director, I can move around this. Okay, and for me, I was happy that I could finalize the storyboards, log the animatic, but I always had this itch to go back and change my angle, or let an animation do something else. There was no way I could do that. So that was one of the biggest problems that I had with this process, in which you are working in a very, very linear fashion. So even though it's looking good, as a storyteller, as a graphic designer, I was happy. As a storyteller, I was just itching for something more. Anyway, I created the first mock-up poster for Schirkoa. I always try to just put this in front of my wall, put even a release date, so that I have something to look forward to for the next few years in my life. And I also created a map of Schirkoa. So there is Schirkoa, Kuntaka, Sissi Watermelon. There are so many cities, districts. I was really into it for a long time. And I used the basic technique of Maya rendering to just create some 3D concepts. So I create concepts in Photoshop, but I'm very inclined to think in 3D. So I started creating these concepts. This was the first one in which I thought of designing the mood of the whole film, the color scheme, how the characters are going to be, and stuff like that. This is where I was defining the streets, the architecture, and everything. There's a very important statue in the film, which I was just trying to think how it would look like. There are a lot of markets inspired by Asian cities, so I was creating them as well. And there is also around, I think, 6 to 7 primary characters in the film, which I designed first, and then I changed a lot, actually, over the process. And I came with a recipe to create this look, which was primarily a sweet spot between a few things. One was definitely, since if you're trying to create a 2D look in 3D, it always tends to look like a cel-shaded anime. There is a process. A lot of animes that we see these days, they are still created inside 3D software, but they are treated with a certain look so that they look like the old anime. That was the one aspect of the process. The second was that I still use CGI to enhance the look as much as possible. And in there, I still put some realistic shaders and surfaces so that things start to look a little bit shiny. With that recipe, I knew it would be impossible to create the feature film with the traditional method. There was no way I could do it myself. Meanwhile, on the other side, I had my concept artist and the storyboard artist who was creating these beautiful concepts for the film based on my script. I would just throw the script to him, and he would throw something at me. And we started talking about, okay, how do we translate something this crude and make it a little bit more cinematic, but still retaining the quality he had in the drawings. These are a few, yeah. So these kind of scenarios in which the lighting is shining, but it still has a proper 3D view, but you can tell that it's still very much painterly in a way. So this was something which I would call inspired by this game called Dishonored, which came out in 2011, in which there are a lot of these painterly textures and shaders going on. And I really tried to study that on different ArtStation, ZBrush Central, all these websites, that how they were really coming up with a look. And with that, I learned a bit and tried to mimic a bit of their techniques into this and came up with my own look. And while I was just discussing Unreal Engine with my team, we were also doing the storyboards because I was editing the 2D animatic, and parallelly, I was trying to come up with my own workflow and pipeline. And while we were doing the storyboards, we started talking about the graphic novel, which was unfinished, because I told him that with these kind of drawings, it's only a matter of coloring them, and we can actually turn this into a graphic novel. So that's our next step for this. Now there was a problem with the characters, for which I chose this tool called Reallusion, in which you don't really have to rig a character, okay? You can basically sculpt a character in a certain way, and from there you will have an automatic rig. It's basically good for biped characters, humanoid characters, but you can try to be a little imaginative from that. So I used that technology, and there's a very in-depth article on befores and afters in which I really go deep into it, but I would say I will try to briefly talk about Reallusion here, because that was a big part of the whole character creation process. So what happens in Reallusion is you basically take a basic biped and start sculpting over it. You can take it to any software, 3D sculpting, Maya, Blender, whatever, and you can just change the body type in whatever way you want. And when you throw that back to the software, it's still rigged. It can still speak to Unreal Engine, can still speak to Maya, Blender. So you have your automatic rig all the time. And it's very good for the facials, because you can actually just use your iPhone and create some beautiful facial animations. And during this process, I started testing Reallusion's characters inside Unreal Engine. Most of the movie was done in Unreal Engine 4.27 back in 2019, I guess. So most of my tests were happening in the old Unreal, not the beautiful Unreal 5.3, which is going on right now. There's a quick video I can show regarding the Reallusion pipeline. These are very early tests, but I was able to check how my characters are behaving with Unreal Engine. Yeah, there's no music in this, so yeah. So here what I'm doing really is I'm just putting basic animations and just quickly throwing it inside a game level, which I created. And then I was checking if my rigs are working properly. Can my character actually interact with some 3D props? Can two characters interact properly? And all those tests were pretty good. And right now, I'm not focusing on the aesthetic at all. It's just about whether a character can go back to Unreal and forth to Reallusion software. This was also my first test with Sequencer in Unreal Engine, which is basically how you create films inside the game engine. The beauty of that, we will talk about in a bit. I can't actually skip this part because we don't need that. Yeah, OK. So this is basically Reallusion. So I had a basic character. I put it back to ZBrush. I sculpted a bit. I put it back again. And now I'm just changing it a little bit here and there. And I have a character rig ready. And this rig can actually go to any software. And the facials are already lined up, so you don't have to really work on the facials also. So it's a very, very automatic process, but not something which you cannot customize. You can also test facials with your iPhone. You can just put it there. You can use a very basic motion capture. This one is, I think, Rococo, I imagine. I was just testing that as well, and that was working very well with that. And you can have live link between both of them. So while you are trying to test your body rig, you can also see live feedback inside Unreal Engine. Now that is very important, because sometimes what happens is your character can actually look good in a tool, but when you take it to the final render in the final frame, it can look really weird because of the shader maps and textures and colors and everything. So this is actually one of the most important tools in your arsenal, in which while you are trying to animate, you also check it live inside Unreal Engine. OK, so now it was time to create the final characters inside the Reallusion tools. So I started coming up with, again, some designs and final sculpts. This is one of the characters in the film. Although every character wears a paper bag on their heads, we actually designed them, because you can still see their eyes and jaws. There's another character. It's a character of Ozzy Argento, who was there to present the film day before yesterday. This is another character. He's a musician. He's based on a real German musician called, his name is King Khan. He did the music for the film, and this is exactly how he looks. So yeah, I was excited, like, OK, the characters are coming well. Now I would just create some mock-up posters just to give myself a kick and inspiration, print them, put them on my walls. OK, everything is ready, and now what I'm doing is a very simple, straightforward process that we knew that we still had to hire a studio to work on the character animation. It is 100 minutes of animation. So we had to modify the rigs in a certain way so that a big, like 40, 50 animators can actually animate characters. If you just have a basic rig coming from Reallusion, it can be a bit simple. So we had all these custom requests from the animator that they wanted to do this, they wanted this. So we kept changing the rigs quite a bit. But it was a very straightforward process that we have in all of our studio pipelines. And 3D assets process was, again, very simple, but I was creating assets with one thing in mind, that I will always be motion capturing the whole film, which basically means the real actors would come on a real set, they would put on a bodysuit, they will put on a camera in front of their head, and when they perform, all their performance is actually transferred to the 3D character inside Unreal Engine. That was a call which I had taken very early on, because the film is very, very conversational. It is not action, it's just people talking, moving around. So it became very important that real people do that and bring their own sensibility and artistry to the acting of the film. And for that, when we were creating the 3D assets, we actually created layouts first and would directly pass it on to the motion capture studio. Because when you do the motion capture, you still need a set on which characters can actually sit so that we have the scaling, we have exact interaction. For instance, if I am standing here and I'm just motion capturing something, I need the scale of the 3D asset in the live action set. So we had to build custom props for it. So our 3D asset pipeline was made in such a way that we would always have a layout which is directly going to the motion capture studio, and another going for just the texturing. So these sets are easy because they are just contained in an interior. There were really big, big sets as well, for which we took a very long time to finish them. And there was always a look development test for a set in which we see, okay, this is working now. How does it look with the outlines? How does it look with the painterly texture maps? How does it look with the flat lighting that we have for our look? Ultimately, we had some really complicated props and assets as well. I will talk about them now. So there is a very long scene in the movie, which you may have seen in the trailers as well, that there is a bus that is moving. It's a very colorful bus inspired by India, Pakistan, and Afghanistani trucks. And there is also a bit of Japanese influence there. So we tried to mix them all up and create our own hippie truck. And this is the, I would say, Maya rig of that truck. Is it working? Oops, sorry. It's playing. Oh, come on. I will show the Unreal first, and then maybe we can see the Maya rig. Okay, so this is not really a rig, but you will see how it looks inside Unreal. And I think it had around 60 assets inside one big giant asset. Everything is rigged, and everything has a skeleton, so that when the truck is actually moving, you have every part which is moving. We did not use simulation for this because it became too much for Unreal Engine to take. So we were crashing all the time. So we were cheating a lot that every part of the bus is a separate rig combined into one massive rig. Yeah, and all this was actually transferred to the motion capture team, and that was one of the most complicated sets we had to build in live, because there are around, I think, 18 people sitting in the bus, and the bus is also up and down, left and right, so we had to really plan it properly. It was a 2-day shoot just for the bus scene. Okay, I think we get it. Let me try to play the Maya rig. It works. I don't know what's happening here. Okay, yeah, it's working. So this is like a very basic, I would say, turbulence on the bus, in which bus is slightly moving, just to check how the fake simulation would behave if we put it inside Unreal Engine. So this is basically a Maya viewport with very basic textures and shaders going on. So for us, it was a one click that if the bus is moving, we turn that on and everything starts moving. And we can just change the amplitude, like how much it is supposed to move around. So most of the assets that we built for this movie were like this, in which we were faking the simulations every time. And we were trying that all the secondary motion is something that animators do not have to animate, but it's just a one-click solution, that you click this and then things start moving suddenly. OK, so that's the bus rig, that's the assets. Now let's move to the interesting part, which was performance capture, in which what we did was, once we had a rough animatic of the film, a rough layout, nothing too locked up, because I really wanted to change the movie as I was making it. I started casting people, and we had shortlisted this animation studio called Solid Anime from Angoulême, France. They're really good at Unreal Engine and performance capture. So we started casting people who had background in motion capture, stage plays, and we casted people for every single character separately. So if one person is playing the role of, let's say, Asia Argento, she continued playing her for the rest of the shoot, so that we can have the homogeneity in the character. So we took like around 1 month to cast the characters, then a lot of rehearsals, a lot of script readings, and ultimately it was the fun part in which we were shooting the film. At one point, we were probably shooting 5 to 6 people on stage, and then if we had to really multiply them, we would do retakes. Because if you have too many people on the stage at one point, it becomes very complicated to capture. Not to mention that we were also capturing the fingers, the facials, and everything. So we really had too many things going on. And I always was using my own monitor behind that to check how it is looking inside Unreal or Motion Builder. As I was talking about, we had to build the props as well so that there is proper interaction. So everything that you see in the movie is actually a basic but real set or a prop. So basically I would just look at the storyboard and then rehearse it with my team, and then we would just have fun with the scene. That is where I think the movie was really made in a way, because we improvised a lot just based on the storyboards, that can we do this, can we do that? And that, I think, really showed in the final film. But ultimately, motion capture is not the only thing which made the film. There was an army of animators who creatively enhanced the performances. There is a studio called Platform, which is an Indian animation studio in Delhi. They did all those animations. This is just 1/4 of the whole team who did that. Now let's talk about Unreal Engine, which took a very long time, but also it simplified the process in many ways. So the whole thing is basically, we all know now that it's a very cyclical process with Unreal Engine, that you throw something at it and you can keep changing it. And while doing that, you can keep seeing the final frame in a way. So for me, I handled 90% of the Unreal Engine part, the lighting and cinematography. And it was just one single file, which 2 to 3 people were sharing together. And for the whole thing, we just divided the master levels set-wise. So if we have one set, it would just be called one level, and all the sequences will go inside that. So now I can talk about basically 2 things. One is the basic Unreal Engine process, which is just lighting the set and feeling how the things are really working. This is, for me, I call virtual location scouting that I usually end up with a lot of things in my level, and then I try to find the best angle. So here I was just trying to find the best angle, and in the end I just decided this is where I will shoot my scene. And then we will get the motion capture actors who would just look like they're standing there, and then I would say action. So it was a very interesting process to do that, because if you just compare it to the short film breakdowns that I showed, we were just locked into one angle, and everything has to take place there. This is a big scene from the movie. The location is called Blue District, and this has a lot going on. One, all the characters that you see in the movie, in the scene, they're all motion captured, and they also have their own routine in the level. So if I just open a file right now and show it to you, people are actually following their routines in a certain way, and I don't have to actually wait or animate something separately for the crowd, for the background characters. If I put my camera, a car will pass through, a guy would be eating, somebody would be walking around. And that became a process in which I was shooting it like a documentary, that, okay, this is the scene, I'm just coming in, things are already moving, things are already playing, and now I just put my main character and put the performance. So let's see that. So as I was saying, every level has, every file has completely different levels. They're all divided into sequences. And this 11, 12 things are actually all the levels in the film, or basically different locations. And they are subdivided into master sequences, but we also have sub-levels. Actually, you can have separate lighting, separate effects in a different level, and you can just call it in. So now again, I'm just trying to find my place where I can actually put my car, my character, my camera, and see how this environment is going to behave. And all the characters you see in the T-pose, when actually play, since they are motion captured and they had a lot of animation in them, they just start moving, and they will keep moving for minutes and minutes. So that, for me, was a very easy process, ultimately. This is, okay, yeah. So this is a place where we usually shoot everything. Okay, now I can turn on the lights probably. So one thing that happens in location scouting is that you don't get to see all the characters immediately, because they're all in different positions. Somebody is inside, somebody is outside. So you may still have, I can call it a disadvantage, that you don't get to see moving characters in a viewport like this. It's still a lot, actually, what you can see, but I would love to move around and then see the characters moving around at the same time as well. But anyway, this is like a whole district. It has, I think, 14 different lanes. Each lane has a different story to tell. And I'm now, I think, going to my taxi. I'll find that taxi here. OK. So this is a sequence in which you can actually define how many frames of animation do you really need. And all those cuts that you see are actually edits. So you can actually be an editor at the same time. So when I was rendering something for the feature film, I was never rendering a shot. I was always rendering 3 to 4 minutes of a sequence which contained number of shots, a lot of shots actually. So, but I will do a master edit inside the level first, so that as a director, editor, and cinematographer, I can actually see where the sequence is going. Is it engaging enough? Because if I do back and forth between DaVinci or Premiere, my editing tool, then it takes forever to export, then put it there and see how it is flowing. So it's much easier to actually process all the editing inside, at least for a full sequence, which can last for 3 to 4 minutes, and then just export the final sequence as a whole. Now here, if I want to change the camera, I can just come out of it very quickly. That's my camera in the back, and then I can just move around and play with it. So that way, the whole process becomes really, really, interesting. And I thought that with all these characters moving around and everything, I was actually able to shoot the scene better, because if you now see the storyboard animatic, it looks very, very different. It's actually nothing like what we have here right now, because it was very, I would say, it was imagined based on the script. And while you're writing the script, you're just imagining something which you do not know how it would look like. But once you see something, it becomes much better to rewrite the script or rethink that scene, because now you can see the actual edit right in front of your eyes, which is actually the final frame of your movie. Now I will talk about another scene, which I would call the anatomy of a scene. So I will talk about performance capture, the Maya layout, and then how it was all incorporated inside Unreal Engine. So here's a scene in a jazz bar where there are a few musicians who are playing some instruments, and there are our two characters who are just talking in the bar in the back. So let's see that.
You're going to miss me. You're gonna miss me. You're gonna miss me.
It exists, see? I told you. The land of the free.
Poor 242, you still don't get it. They even admit it. It's an...
Okay, so that's the scene. Basically, we had a lot of back and forth between Unreal and Maya to get this layout. And ultimately, when everything was set, it was time to put it inside Unreal and see how the motion capture is behaving there and everything. So if we had to just see this scene inside Unreal, it is a separate level, of course, just like the previous scene. So again, the bad T-pose, which I'm not a fan of initially, but once we play, you can start to see some of it. But that's just the set, how it looks like. And in the end, I have all these people who are already ready to sit there and start their performances. And that performance lasts for 5 minutes. So we have ample time to actually shoot the scene, because the main characters are only talking for 2 minutes in the scene. So we have a lot of background characters, crowd characters doing their own thing. And this, what you see right now, is basically each character. So you can actually just click and define where each character is, what they're doing. You can group them up also, so it becomes really easy to direct your characters, because one, you can choose what animation do you need for them. And I had a whole library of animation through motion capture. So ultimately, if I don't like a certain performance, I can choose a different take for that guy. And then I realize, okay, he's acting better now. Okay, now we can see the lit version of it and then see how it really goes with the whole scene when we play it. So as you can see, when I'm dragging, it's actually the whole performance of people. I don't have to go shot by shot, that I'm not restricted by 10 seconds of performance. Now, I set action on the motion capture set. They're all going to their positions. They're sitting. And the band is ready, and once I say, okay, let's go, you're playing the music, they just start, dancing. And since there is no camera, I can actually literally put my camera anywhere after the final performance. So this I would call not just location scouting, but also performance scouting, because there are at least 35 people in this room right now, and they're all doing their own things. And for me, then it's very interesting to find, okay, this guy's doing something nice. Let's put camera here. Let's put there. So I have multi-camera setup going on, and then when I just put them together, there is a sequence which I never thought of in the storyboarding stage. So this is where they're talking and all that. And then when I put the actual cameras, let's see, okay, this is the whole performance. Okay, now let's see the cameras. It's just like any editing software, so it's easy for the director to look and find if all the sequences of shots is working and telling a story together. Okay, but even though all this is very interesting, there are a lot of things which Unreal can, confuse you with. And I had so many things which were wrong. I had to troubleshoot. I was talking to Epic Games consistently. They were very supportive of the project. They also gave it a really big mega grant. So they were also checking in, like, how am I doing? Do I need something? And ultimately, I realized that there are so many things which can go wrong if I just do one thing incorrectly, that I had to come up with my own cheat sheet. So just so you know that all this process, even though it looks very interesting, there are so many things which I had to take care of that ultimately I had to end up with this, that if I do this, then it will work. If I miss out on something, it all crashes suddenly. So just so you know, it's not just so rosy with real-time rendering at the same time. But ultimately, I would say that once you actually see stills like these and everything, and once you know that now when something comes out of your animation software, you do not have to break it into several passes, which I showed you in the short film. The characters were different, the backgrounds was different, the lighting was different, and you had to still composite them. And that's a separate team which will do it for you. And it's a very lengthy process. If you don't have all that, you can actually cut down almost 6 months of your production timeline, not to mention the budget. But I would say the most rewarding process is that as a lighter cinematographer director, I was able to actually enhance the scenes until the very end. So I could really, really see, okay, it's not just about the look of the film, it's also about what I'm trying to make you feel for this particular scene, which becomes very hard if it's, I have to just see thousands of passes, put them in Nuke, and see how they're really behaving in the end. And I would also say that I'm not really hell-bent on the final look, like it has to look photorealistic, unless, for me, it is telling the story and is conveying the script properly. I call it, okay, it's the shot. There are thousands of things which you can keep doing till the very end and wait for it to look pristine and nice. But for me, my script and story and characters were far more important than really perfect-looking renders. So ultimately, I logged on a look, and I stuck to it till the very end. So that's Unreal Engine. That's behind the scenes of Schirkoa feature film. I can continue talking about it, but I'm limited on time. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We have time for some questions from the audience, if there is. Yep.
So thanks for the presentation and thanks for the movie. I saw it the other day and I really like it very much. You seem to have liked a lot to work with Unreal Engine, for the liberty it gave you to put the camera and etc. Do you think you will, on future movies, still work with the Unreal Engine, or would you prefer to try something else?
Oh, that's a very good question. I don't know, honestly, because I'm always tinkering with new things. So I might actually change to something else. That's very likely, because it's changing so quickly. I'm glad to say I'm playing with AI and learning its disadvantages really quickly. So although the world is going gaga over it, I'm really, using it and seeing, how much is it really failing in what I want? So there might be something new coming for sure, and I would be very happy to see that, because for me, ultimately, it's just about if I can translate my written word into the final story. So even if it becomes like a live action, and if live action is the best medium for the story, I would go for it, because I love stage plays. I am a theater performer, so I would love to go back to that medium. But right now, I'm using Unreal Engine to create something which is both narrative and experiential. So I'm creating a story which you can view as a cinematic thing, but at the same time you can go and experience it like a video game. So I see that as the future of stories. Welcome.
I actually have one question. How many people do you think are using this technology for making movies? Like, is it a niche, or is there more and more people using it?
It was a niche in 2017, 2018 when we started it, because it was very complicated to actually bring something to Unreal, and the results were not really worth it. But now it's I wouldn't call it mainstream, but a lot of small studios are adapting it. The big ones are not exactly adapting it fully right now, because it's they have to really change their pipeline completely. But there's a lot happening in virtual production. Like if you see Mandalorian, you know, the things were actually shot on a live set, and the backgrounds are Unreal Engine made, but you can actually have it on the camera. So that is where I think it's really going for mainstream. But for something like this, animated feature films in Unreal and TV shows, it's for the smaller and medium-sized studios.
Thanks for the presentation. As you have everything in Unreal Engine, do you plan to make the video game of it?
Yes. It's a natural thing to do, because the whole film is multiple levels which can actually be, you know, experienced. So if I just use my controller and I just put a character there, I can actually move around the Schirkoa movie. And people are still moving there. So it does feel very good. There is no story there, though. So I will need a whole programming team to actually create a story, which could take years, honestly. But I would say a lot is already done for the art side of this project. And then mechanics we will have to figure out. Yes, I will do that.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm now really looking forward to watching the movie later this week. My question is about casting. I was wondering what kind of people, actors, did you hire for the motion capture part? Were you looking for traditional professional actors, stunt performers, or I don't know, were you looking for specific skills in performers regarding motion capture?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. When we were casting, we were looking for two kinds of actors. One, who are stunt performers, because there are certain things which simply nobody can do, but only a stunt performer can do. And there are so many things, even in this movie, which is very simple and not actiony, we had that. Second is stage actors. We almost never go for movie actors because they are accustomed to a single shot. So that is like 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and they're done. Stage actors are accustomed to, you know, hours of performing. And that is a skill we need in motion capture, very much. So with those two kinds of casting, what we had was, let's say, if we have the main character, and he has a scene in which he has to run and really jump far, and then stand up, and then do a really intense dramatic dialogue, then it would be done by two people. We would break it, all the jumping part will be done by the stuntman, and then as he gets up, then our actor will come up and he will deliver the lines. So that was, yeah, the process.
Yes.
I was wondering if you mentioned as a inspiration Dishonored. Do you think that the fact you worked in a video game engine changed your inspirations from, I don't know, movies to video games?
Absolutely, because Dishonored was so old that time. I would say it served as an inspiration for the short film, definitely, because short film was 2016. So that was the time I was still dealing with traditional 3D software like Maya. But as I delved into Unreal Engine, I started picking inspirations from really different kind of genres of games. I can't remember the exact name. There is a inspiration from Borderlands also, which is just the outlines really, but it plays a huge role because the way Borderlands do textures, it's really interesting. You know, it's something that people would say that it's very illustration style or whatever, but I love the way they dealt with the textures. Because if you see the textures, there is really no reflection going on. There is nothing. It's just a flat albedo map. So that, for me, was fascinating. So such instances in which I found that somebody is using Unreal Engine in a very different way definitely became a different inspiration. And I think it changed the look also quite drastically.
You mentioned you came from stage, and I was wondering if you wanted to go further with that kind of technology and saying, instead of making movies, making stage play in real time, with real actors playing in the background and having the render in real time, would that be something you could see in the future, or you still want the edit part to be something? Because if you get the edit part away, you could just leave it like a stage, a real one.
So I'll tell you a very quick story that I'm writing 3 things right now, and all 3 of them have completely different mediums. So my next one is a feature animation because I was already doing that. Second one is an experience, which is a narrative-driven story in a film, but also something you can experience in a video game. And third is a monologue of a person. Now, I don't know what to do with it, but your question has given me idea. You know, it's a really great idea. I never thought of it, but I would say I might just do that. So thank you for that.
During the question of the projection of the movie, you say that Asia Argento influenced her character in the movie, Lies. And I was wondering if it was also the case for other actors, if once you choose the cast, if they influence the rendering of the character in the movie.
Yeah, hugely, actually. Because one thing is that we were rehearsing via Zoom during the pandemic. So what we would do is, let's say Soko is one of the characters in the film. She came online, our main guy came online, and we were just doing script reading. And the way they were behaving, the way they were talking, after a few rehearsals, there was a chemistry. And due to that chemistry, completely new lines came into the movie. Now that is an improvisation part, which is fine. But also, the way Soko was behaving and talking, I never thought that character would do it that way. And that changed the motion capture performance of the actor who was doing it. How did it happen? When we do the voiceover recordings, we would always shoot them. We would put a camera, and even though they're not so emotive, we would still see what they were trying to think during that performance. Now, when the motion capture actor sees that video of a voice actor performance, they would know, oh, this is what she's trying to do. This is what she's doing. And when they keep seeing those videos again and again, it would start to inspire their performances a bit more. For example, Asia Argento's character is actually played by a 23-year-old girl, you know, and she is a dancer, but she's also a very good actor. So initially, what she was doing was quite different. And for the first day, we were just, you know, playing with the characters. And then I gave her all the videos of Asia and her performance in the voice recording studio. And next day, she was imbibing more of Asia. So it was always a back and forth and inspiration between all the performers, actors, and everything.
Sorry, I didn't know the other voice of the film, but for Farhani, everybody know her, and why do you choose her?
Okay, we actually went with very specific characters, very specific casting for each character. For example, Asia was somebody we always thought would be played by somebody who is very extreme, very erratic, and very, very artistic at the same time. For that character, Gulshifte Farahani's character, we needed somebody really soft-spoken, but at the same time who is very, very deep in the thought process. Not to mention, Gulshifte's character and her own life are actually quite similar. So in our film, 242B, the character, is actually somebody who is a foreigner to Schirkoa, who came there, and then who was probably exiled in the end. So these were the relations which played very well. At the same time, we also wanted somebody who is a good, I would say, artist, not just actor, but artist in general. So in the end, when we were looking for that scene in which there is a desert scene and she's just sitting there, we would just let her hum a music or a song. And when she did that, that actually changed everything for the character, because I would say she was really free for the first time in her life in Schirkoa, when she was sitting at the border. So all these things, when we were thinking in a very holistic way, we realized that it could be really Golshifteh's voice, which could be a foreigner in this land of dystopia, in this caged freedom, which is Schirkoa. At the same time, who is somebody who is probably exiled, and somebody who can sing and be very, very innocent in her heart.
We have time for one last question. If there's not, I actually have one last one. I was wondering, while seeing the movie, like, how do you do with a secondary character? Is it like kind of copy-paste character and you add a little bit of variety into them, or how? Well, I was actually wondering, is it difficult to make some variety of secondary character on the behind?
They were actually done sequence-wise. So there's a whole sequence of the Blue District, the market. So in that, I would just call all the motion capture actors and give them situations that you are a seller, you are buying something, you are having a fight, you are just walking around and you're stumbling. I would give a situation to each of them, and then they would do it on a loop. They would keep repeating that. It would be a long loop, obviously, but they would just keep doing that. Somebody would go, buy something, come back, then again, tie their laces, go buy something. So I gave them all a routine, but all this was done sequence-wise. So a market has a particular sequence. It may have 30 different kind of animations, each having 4 to 5 different takes. So there were a lot of variations. So I didn't really have to actually copy-paste something for this kind of thing. So now if we go to that jazz bar scene, which we just saw, here it was easy. Here I just talked to them that this is the table, and this is what you guys are talking about. And everybody was talking about something else. And I told them, you're going to be a little bit more drunk. You just came in, you are late. I would just give them situations. And they would behave very differently at the same time. And that became a nice crowd. But if I just copy-paste them, then 2, 3 people would start doing the same thing. And even though the scene might look good, you would know that something is missing, you know?
Well, thank you very much. I think we can applaud.
Thank you.